He was my first love. He's the one I want forever, not you. My fiancée said that after jumping into her ex's car and leaving me on our wedding day. But after he dumped her, she shamelessly came back begging me. My name's Abel. I'm 31 years old, and what I'm about to tell you is still hard for me to process, even though weeks have passed. I want to start from the beginning because I feel it's the only way for anyone to understand what I went through. This didn't happen overnight. There was a story behind it. And although I've never been one to write on forums, what happened to me was so intense that I feel I need to tell it somewhere. I met Esmeralda almost 5 years ago. From the beginning, I was surprised by how clear she was with her intentions and how orderly she led her life. She wasn't one of those people who get carried away by impulses, but rather she had things well established. She had ended a relationship of several years with a man named Raul, and when we started dating, she told me directly. She didn't try to hide it or sugarcoat it. She told me that their relationship had been serious, that they had even lived together for a while, but that in the end it didn't work out because they wanted different things. According to her words, there were no deceptions or betrayals. It simply reached a point where their paths were no longer heading in the same direction. When I heard that, I was grateful. I preferred sincerity to her hiding things from me. Obviously, at first I couldn't help but feel a certain discomfort knowing there was someone so present in her past. But what reassured me was the way she presented it, clear, firm, and without drama. She made it very clear to me that Raul was part of a finished stage and that what she wanted now was to build something new with me. Over time, I understood that Raul still appeared in some aspects of her life, but not in a sentimental way, but in a professional one. They both worked at the same company, although in different areas. She was a project manager, while he was in logistics. So, from time to time, they had to coordinate or cross-reference information. When I found out, I didn't like it very much, but Esmeralda was very open about it. She always mentioned it to me without me having to ask. Today I spoke with Raul because there was a problem with the suppliers, or I had to coordinate the inventory with Raul. At first, it seemed strange to me that she mentioned him so often, but then I understood that she did it precisely so that there would be no secrets. In those years of our relationship, she never gave me a real reason to distrust her. She was a very centered woman and very respectful of her boundaries. She never answered a message at inappropriate times, never hid calls, and never used the excuse of work to leave the house for no reason. On the contrary, she always tried to keep me calm. She would show me the progress of her projects, talk to me about meetings, about the company's problems. I felt that what she was trying to do was to let me know at all times that her thing with Raul was strictly professional. I confess, inside, I always felt a little relieved when the holidays came, because I knew that meant no contact with him. And there was a moment, 2 years after we met, when I received the news that gave me the most peace of mind in a long time. Raul had resigned from the company. He decided to accept a job out of town, something related to imports in a much larger company. I remember the day Esmeralda told me perfectly. We were having dinner and she blurted it out. Today was Raul's last day at the company. He's going to work in Monterrey. I don't know if she noticed the peace it gave me, but the truth is I felt liberated. Not because I distrusted her, but because the mere idea of him being nearby was something that, even if I tried to hide it, was still a weight. From then on, the contact disappeared almost completely. She never mentioned him again, and little by little I forgot he ever existed. Over the years, our relationship grew stronger. Esmeralda was everything I was looking for in a partner. Mature, hardworking, affectionate, and with a strong but fair character. She knew how to set boundaries. She knew when to give in and when not to, and she made me feel secure. She wasn't one of those people who play games with jealousy or secrets. With her, everything was clear. That's what led me to take the next step. The idea of proposing to her had been on my mind for a long time, but I wanted to do it in a way that was truly special. She had always had a dream, to visit Hawaii. Ever since I met her, she would talk to me about the beaches, the landscapes, how beautiful that place seemed to her through photos and documentaries. She said that one day she wanted to walk barefoot on the white sand and watch a sunset there. So I decided that the moment I proposed would be linked to that dream. I spent months planning everything in secret. I saved up, organized my work schedule, and managed to make it a surprise. I told her I had a trip planned, that she should come with me without giving many details. She suspected there was something behind it, because I'm not exactly the most spontaneous man in the world, but she never imagined what I was preparing. We arrived in Hawaii on a trip that for me was the most important of my life. I remember that on the first afternoon, as we were walking on the beach, she was amazed by everything she saw. She couldn't stop smiling. She took photos and hugged me every 2 minutes saying she couldn't believe she was there. That same afternoon, as the sun began to set on the horizon and the sky was painted in shades of orange and violet, I took out the ring I had been keeping and knelt before her. I don't think I'll ever forget the look of surprise on her face. She put her hands to her mouth, started crying, and could barely speak. When she finally managed to say yes, she hugged me so tightly that I felt the world stop. That trip was magical. We spent a whole week exploring beaches, climbing volcanoes, trying the local food, and just enjoying being together. The proposal became the most special memory we shared, and from that moment on, we started talking seriously about the wedding. The return home was different. We were no longer just boyfriend and girlfriend. Now we were engaged, and that gave our relationship a new lease of life. She was happy. She called her family and friends to tell them the news. She showed off the ring with pride, and she was already making mental lists of everything she wanted for that day. I was surprised by how organized she was because only a few weeks had passed, and she was already researching venues, looking at dresses, thinking about menus, and even the music. I supported her in everything, although sometimes I was a little overwhelmed by the amount of detail a wedding involved, but seeing her so enthusiastic filled me with excitement too. As the months went by, the preparations began to take shape. We found a beautiful venue with a large garden where the ceremony would be held outdoors. The date was set for the following summer, which gave us enough time to organize everything calmly. She met with her family several times to talk about the guests, the flowers, the colors she wanted. I, for my part, took care of the music and some arrangements with the catering. I can't say everything was perfect, because like in any wedding, there were tensions and arguments over small things, but in the end we always agreed. As the date approached, the excitement grew. She went for dress fittings with her mother, checked invitations, spoke with suppliers. I saw all of this and felt that I was on the right path, that I had found the right person to start a family with. My friends told me that the happiness was visible on my face, and even my parents, who were a bit reserved at first, ended up adoring her. It was impossible not to. Esmeralda had that personality that inspired confidence, always sure of herself, always with the right word. For me, the day of the proposal in Hawaii had been the confirmation of what I felt, that she was the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And as the preparations progressed, every step reinforced that idea. I saw her so committed to everything, so thrilled, that it never crossed my mind that something could go wrong. What I didn't know was that despite all that security, there was something in the past that was not yet fully buried, something that I thought was closed forever, but that would reappear just when I least expected it, at the moment that was supposed to be the happiest of my life. 3 days before the wedding, Esmeralda started acting strangely. I noticed it in small details. First, she was quieter, easily distracted, and sometimes seemed absent in the middle of simple conversations. That same night, while we were having dinner, she said something that puzzled me. What if we postpone the wedding? At first I thought she was joking, but her face showed a seriousness that chilled me to the bone. When I asked her the reason, she told me she had been having stomach problems for the last few days, and that she felt she was going to get sick right on the wedding day. According to her, she preferred to be in good health before living that moment. I confess, I was worried. The next day, we went to the doctor to rule out any problems. The doctor examined her, asked her some questions, and finally said that she was perfectly fine, that it was probably just nerves typical of the situation. I wanted to believe that, and I even felt a little guilty for not having considered that the stress of planning a wedding could affect her so much. When we left the doctor's office, I hugged her and told her not to worry, that everything would be fine, that she just had to relax. She smiled weakly, but she didn't seem convinced. The following days were increasingly strange. While I was excited about the final details, I noticed that she seemed more tense, as if she were carrying a weight she didn't want to share. She would get up late, avoid talking much about the wedding, and sometimes I would find her in silence, staring into space. I didn't want to give it too much importance. I thought it was normal for anyone on the eve of getting married to experience intense nerves. It was our wedding, and I was convinced that nothing could ruin it. For me, everything else was going well. I had the reservation for our honeymoon ready. We would return to Hawaii, the place that had become our most special memory. I knew she had loved that trip, so I made an effort to plan an even more special stay, with new tours and different experiences to revive the magic of that moment when she said yes. Besides, my friends and I were already furnishing the apartment we had chosen together. We had visited it several times. She chose the colors of the walls and the main furniture. It was a cozy place, perfect to start our life as newlyweds. My friends had offered to help with the final details to have it ready right after the wedding. I couldn't be more excited. The woman of my life, our home, a dream trip. Everything seemed to be aligned. The wedding day arrived. I was nervous since the morning. I got up early, checked my suit, the ring, the documents over and over again. My heart was beating fast, not with fear, but with excitement. The ceremony would be in the garden of the event hall we had chosen, with an arch full of white and lilac flowers, Esmeralda's favorites. The guests began to arrive. Family, friends, colleagues. The atmosphere was charged with joy and expectation. When she arrived, everyone fell silent for a moment. Esmeralda was flawless. Her dress was simple but elegant, a radiant white that stood out against her skin, and her hair gathered in a delicate updo. She walked with confidence, and although she seemed nervous, her smile lit up the whole place. When our eyes met, I felt that everything made sense, that everything I had done in my life had led me to that moment. The ceremony was beautiful. We looked into each other's eyes as we said our vows, and when we signed the documents, I was overcome with an indescribable emotion. We were officially husband and wife. She smiled, kissed me, and everyone applauded. I believed I saw her happy, that she was sharing that fulfilled dream with me. The party began with music, dancing, and laughter. Everyone was celebrating. The dance floor was full, and the toasts kept coming. I was surrounded by my friends, my family, hers. Everything seemed to be a success. It was then, in the middle of the celebration, that the unforgettable happened. Suddenly, Esmeralda approached me and hugged me tightly. She whispered in my ear, "My love, forgive me." I stood still, confused. I asked her why. "What are you talking about?" She didn't answer. She let go of the hug and ran towards the exit of the hall. At first I thought it was a joke, that she would come back, but we all saw how she quickly got into a car that was waiting for her with the engine running. The driver took off abruptly, burning rubber in front of all the guests. The music stopped dead, the laughter died, and all that was left was a stunned silence. Nobody knew what was happening. Desperate, I shouted her name and took out my phone to call her. She answered. I put it on speakerphone by accident, out of nervousness, and her broken voice was heard throughout the hall. My love, I'm sorry. I hate doing this today, but believe me, I tried. I love you. I love you very much, but I can't put aside my feelings for Raul. He was my first love, the first in everything. And he's the one I want to be with forever. I'm leaving. I'll never come back. My world collapsed in that instant. Everyone heard her words. My friends, my parents, her parents, the guests. Nobody moved. I could only shout. Why the hell didn't you tell me this before doing all this? We already signed. Now what? How are we supposed to get divorced from something that hasn't even started? But she gave me no more answers, just said through tears, forgive me, Abel, and hung up. The silence was broken by her parents crying. I saw them hugging, but there was something in her mother's expression that chilled me to the bone. She didn't seem surprised. She wasn't crying with bewilderment, but with a contained pain, like someone who already knew what was going to happen. That image has stayed with me. Since then, I suspect she knew, that she was aware that Raul had returned to the city or that they were in contact. I have no proof, but I can't stop thinking about it. The party dissolved in a matter of minutes. My friends surrounded me to support me. They hugged me. They practically forced me out of there. I was in shock. I could barely process what had happened. The woman who until a few minutes ago was my wife had abandoned me at our own wedding to leave with her ex-boyfriend. All in front of our families, in front of everyone who loved us. There is no greater humiliation. We went back home and I spent the night surrounded by my friends, who took turns staying with me so I wouldn't be alone. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. The messages were piling up, but none of them were from her. I tried calling her 1,000 times, each time with the absurd hope that she would answer and tell me it had all been a mistake, that she would come back. She never answered. The following days were hell. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. I would wake up at any hour of the morning to see if there was a message from her. I checked social media, looked for traces, any sign of where she was, with whom, what she was doing. Nothing. She had completely disappeared. The only thing left was that speakerphone call that everyone heard like a sentence. The weeks passed, and then the months. Nothing changed. Not a message, not a call, not an attempt at an explanation. Nothing. She had simply left with Raul. The man she had told me so many times was just a memory of the past, the same one who, according to her, posed no threat to our relationship. The same one for whom she left me at the most important moment of our lives. I still don't understand it. I got married. We signed the documents, and in a matter of minutes, I found myself with my marriage broken before it even began. There is no manual for something like this. There is no way to describe the emptiness it leaves. I still wonder how she could have kept all of that to herself until the end. How she was able to plan every detail of the wedding, to smile at the ceremony, to say I do in front of everyone, knowing she was going to run away. Update. It has been more than a year and a half since that day my life changed in the most humiliating way possible. I didn't think I would write about this again, but I'm doing it because the unexpected happened. Esmeralda reappeared, and, although I no longer feel the same for her, I confess that hearing her voice stirred up memories I thought I had buried. Today my life is different. After the failed wedding, it took me months to regain some semblance of normality. My trust in people was shattered, and the idea of falling in love again seemed impossible. But 6 months ago, during a business trip, I met Diana. She was part of the team of another company we collaborated with, and from the first moment, there was chemistry. What started as casual conversations turned into something serious. Diana has a strong, direct personality, but at the same time, she is affectionate and empathetic. By her side, I regained the dream of building a relationship. I wouldn't say it has been easy, but she has shown me what it really means to be a life partner. Everything was going well until I received that call. It was an ordinary afternoon. I answered without looking at the number, and on the other end, I heard a voice I recognized instantly. Abel, it's me, Esmeralda. I felt a lurch in my stomach. It had been over a year since I had heard anything from her at all. I was silent for a few seconds, not knowing what to say. She broke the ice. Forgive me for everything. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I want to start over with you. My reaction was one of disbelief. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. How could she have the nerve to show up after what she did? I replied coldly. Do you have any idea what you caused, what you put me through? She insisted, crying, that it had been a mistake, that what she felt for Raul wasn't real, that she had gotten carried away by nostalgia, and that she had destroyed my life and hers for a wrong decision. I couldn't take it anymore. I told her clearly, no, there's nothing to talk about. You already made your decision, and now you live with the consequences. And I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. A few days later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, I saw her. Esmeralda was standing there in front of me, and I must admit, I barely recognized her. The woman who was once flawless, self-assured, with a sparkle in her eyes, was gone. In her place was someone visibly deteriorated. She had gained a lot of weight. Her eyes were dull, and she had an air of defeat about her entire being. Please, Abel, just give me a few minutes to talk, she asked with a broken voice. The problem was that Diana was with me at home that day. She heard the voice and came over to see who it was. I don't need to explain the discomfort I felt. I looked at Diana and said the first thing that came to mind. She's the one who left me at the wedding, the one who abandoned me in front of everyone. I expected Diana to react with anger or to ask me to close the door, but to my surprise, she said calmly, you know what? I am interested in what she has to say. Let her in. Talk, I'll step aside. And so, Esmeralda entered my house for the first time in over a year. She sat on the sofa with trembling hands while Diana moved away a little, watching with her arms crossed. I remained standing, not knowing if I had the strength to listen to her. Then she began to speak. She told me that as soon as she left with Raoul, everything turned into a nightmare. At first, she thought she had made the best decision of her life. According to her, he had promised her a life together full of plans and love. He told her that he had always waited for her, that he had never forgotten her, and that now was the time to recover what they had lost. She, blinded by those memories and nostalgia, believed his words. It didn't take long for her to get pregnant. At first, Raoul seemed happy with the news, but as the months went by, he started to distance himself. When the baby was born, instead of uniting as a family, he almost completely disengaged. She told me between sobs that he would be away for days, that sometimes he wouldn't even answer her calls, that he didn't give her enough money, and that when he was home, he would mistreat her with cruel words. I realized too late that I was wrong. The man I thought Raoul was no longer existed, or maybe he never did, and I ruined my life and yours. She asked for my forgiveness over and over again. She said she had made the worst mistake, that she regretted it more every day, that she had let go of the only man who truly loved and respected her. I know you have someone. I know I no longer have the right to ask you for anything. But if you ever felt anything for me, help me. I'm not asking to get back together. Just help me get out of this. Before I could answer, Diana spoke. Her tone was firm, direct, even sarcastic. Oh, honey, you are so stupid. Leaving a man like him is really something to analyze. Look, Abel is handsome, loving, faithful, respectful, has a stable job, a solid economy. He's the best catch I've ever met. And what did you do? You left him for your ex, the same one who probably promised you the sky and gave you hell. He got you pregnant, mistreated you, and abandoned you. I don't like to make fun of other people's misfortune, but your case is very mockable. Seriously, what did you expect to happen? I guess you won't forgive her, right, Abel? I stared at Diana. Her harshness was brutal, but she wasn't wrong. I answered calmly, though firmly. Of course not. She made her decision, and now she must live with the consequences. Her bad decisions are not my fault. I'm not going to carry something that I didn't cause. So go, Esmeralda, get out of here. She burst into tears. She could barely look me in the eye as she got up and walked to the door. She left humiliated, defeated, without another word. I closed the door behind her and stood in silence for a few seconds. Diana was the first to speak. What a shame for the girl. The truth is I just wanted to know how that gossip ended. That's why I told you to let her in, but it's clear there's nothing more to be done. I sat on the sofa, exhausted. A part of me felt anger, another part compassion. As much as it pained me to admit it, I still had some pity for Esmeralda. She had destroyed my life in the past, yes, but she had also destroyed her own. There was nothing left of the woman I once loved. The only thing in front of me was the result of her bad decisions. And although she asked me for help, I understood that I was not responsible for saving her. She had chosen another path, and now she had to face it alone. That night I stayed up thinking. I reflected on the irony of the situation. I once thought my life was ruined by what she did to me, and now I realized that it was actually a blessing in disguise. If Esmeralda hadn't left me, I would never have met Diana. I would never have discovered that I could be genuinely loved and reciprocated with respect. The pain I went through was necessary to get me where I am today. I'm writing this not for revenge or to expose anyone, but to record that although sometimes life hits us in the cruelest way, it also opens up unexpected paths. I thought my wedding day was the end of my story, but it was actually the beginning of another. And today, after all, I can say that I am stronger and that although I have scars, I am at peace.